Few genres have managed to capture a zeitgeist quite like the conspiracy thriller. Although a persistent presence in the medium for decades prior, the genre only emerged as a real force during the 1970s, an American decade mired in distrust, crime, and Watergate. And while paranoia would denote a sense of the irrational, a fear to be dismissed as an intangible reality, the works of Alan Pakula, Francis Ford Coppola, and others during that decade were as much reflective of that zeitgeist as they were adept at tapping into those timeless, almost imperceptible fears every person has. Their films resonate not just because they were masterful in conveying dread, but because they encapsulated the anxieties of an era that, and forgive me for going full history student here, still manages to shape the world to this day. With that in mind, I'm Ewan from What Culture, and here are 10 conspiracy movies that'll make you paranoid. And before we continue, there may or may not be scenes of intense dental torture here, so if you couldn't handle Steve Martin's dentist in Little Shop of Horrors, best look away now. Number 10. Marathon Man. Marathon Man, the 1976 John Schlesinger thriller about a history student caught up in a Nazi conspiracy, isn't just a fantastic adaptation of My Time at University, but one of the best films of the genre. Starring Dustin Hoffman, Roy Scheider, William Devane, and Laurence Olivier, in an Oscar-nominated performance I should add, the film, based on the novel of the same name, exemplifies all there is to love about the 70s love affair with conspiracy thrillers, adopting a decidedly more violent tone to drive home its horror. Olivier in particular is absolutely bone-chilling as the story's Nazi war criminal, bringing his talents to bear in an excruciatingly painful torture sequence that would delay anyone's next visit to the dentist. Throw in a score composed by Michael Small, and you have one of the 70s best and most iconic conspiracy thrillers. Number 9. Enemy of the State. Although the genre in its current form owes much to the works of Paul Greengrass and his seminal Bourne series, it was Tony Scott's Enemy of the State that truly marked the genre's modern-day resurgence. Buoyed by renewed interest thanks to films like The Pelican Brief and The Firm, each directed by genre pioneers Alan Pakula and Sidney Pollack respectively, Enemy of the State was heralded as a spiritual successor to Francis Ford Coppola's 1974 work, The Conversation, thanks in part to the presence of Gene Hackman, who plays a former intelligence operative determined to save Robert Dean, played by Will Smith, from the clutches of a corrupt NSA outfit. Like Coppola's film, Enemy of the State roots itself primarily in anxiety surrounding surveillance technology. It's far less effective than The Conversation, and its Bruckheimer inflections are plain for all to see, but there is something genuine about the film, which grounds itself well thanks to Will Smith's portrayal of an ordinary guy caught up in extraordinary circumstances. Number 8. 3 Days of the Condor. There is no star more synonymous with the conspiracy genre than Robert Redford. The actor, who had gone to star in the equally seminal All the President's Men, starred in another of the genre's most iconic films in Sidney Pollack's 3 Days of the Condor, a film that went on to inspire everyone's favorite Marvel film, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Released during the Year of Intelligence, a period which saw intense public scrutiny fall under the CIA and FBI, 3 Days was very much a product of its time, reflective of those anxieties, much like other thrillers of the period. It's no less resonant today, however, with its story of CIA corruption, assassination, and conspiracy ticking all the boxes when it comes to matching the genre's best efforts. But really, the true strength of 3 Days lies in how helpless it makes the audience feel. You truly get a sense of how Redford's character is battling against one of the most intricate and efficient intelligence apparatuses in the world. And in light of the scandal that was then befalling America's own, 3 Days horror only hits closer to home. Number 7. The Insider. One of the true horror stories of our time that most people seemingly haven't heard of is the one involving Jeffrey Wigand and Brown and Williamson, a whistleblower who lifted the lid on the American tobacco industry and the methods they went to make a more addictive and dangerous cigarette. The Insider, Michael Mann's 1999 drama detailing those events, makes for sobering viewing. Starring Al Pacino as Laurel Bergman, a journalist for CBS's famous 60 Minutes, and Russell Crowe as Wigand, the film depicts Bergman's investigation and the subsequent harassment Wigand endured at the hands of his former employers. He's targeted maliciously, made to fear for his life, and he still comes through in the end, having been subjected to the full might of one of the country's most powerful industries. Number 6. The Parallax View. The second entry in Alan Pakula's Paranoid trilogy is perhaps its weakest, but it's no less unsettling in its approach. Released in the wake of the Warren Commission and in the run-up to the House Select Committee on Assassinations, Parallax roots itself squarely in anxiety surrounding the high-profile deaths of JFK, his brother Robert, and Martin Luther King. Conspiracy conspiracies abounded at the time, and Parallax, starring Warren Beatty in the leading role, is a conspiracy film through and through, featuring reporter Joseph Frady as he uncovers an international cabal dedicated to assassinating leading political figures. There's still dread, and Pakula's story is just as unnerving as his other efforts, but it's a different kind altogether, exemplified in full by the horror of the film's infamous montage sequence, which is always worth a watch, regardless of whether you're yet to see it or not. Number 5. Blowout. Brian De Palma's spiritual successor to Blow Up, and in a way The Conversation too, is one of the director's best, and a conspiracy film bound to get even the steeliest of viewers shuddering with nerves. Centered around a sound effects technician, John Travolta, who unwittingly records the murder of an aspiring presidential candidate, Blowout has become a veritable cult classic, embodying the spirit of early Hitchcock while also following in the footsteps of 70s-era conspiracy fiction. It's just a great film, and one that also manages to capture a really unsettling atmosphere that poses a constant threat to the viewer from start to finish. Despite garnering a positive critical reception, Blowout struggled to find an audience during its initial release. It has since, however, gone on to develop something of a cult following, and with it being as spine-chilling as it is, it's easy to see why. Number 4. JFK. Oliver Stone is about as divisive a filmmaker as he can get, but there's no denying that JFK, his adaptation of Jim Garrison's book On the Trail of the Assassins, is really quite special. Part political thriller, part courtroom drama, JFK captured the attention of those who always felt there was more to the assassination of the 35th president than met the eye. It was embroiled in controversy right from the very get-go, but regardless of its inaccuracies, Stone's film makes for a suspenseful watch. Costner is convincing as the controversial Garrison, a New Orleans DA determined to prove the conspiracy that ostensibly felled Kennedy. But there are others, such as Donald Sutherland and Tommy Lee Jones, who make the film even better. There's just something almost unnerving in the way Stone, and by extension Garrison, assemble their case for a conspiracy having been responsible for the president's assassination. It might be riddled with inaccuracies, inconsistencies, and certain contrivances, but the film itself was a cultural phenomenon, sparking renewed interest in the deliberations of the Warren Commission, and with it JFK's death. Number 3. All the President's Men. Plenty of conspiracy films lend themselves well to fiction, but with All the President's Men, its fear lies in its accuracy. Alan Pakula's finale to the Paranoid trilogy is an adaptation of Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein's novel of the same name, and in many ways, it's actually the trilogy's most terrifying work. That stems from the fact that pretty much all of the film follows the actual history of the Watergate affair, right through to Richard Nixon's resignation in 1974. The film itself is Pakula's finest work, as the director lays bare the machinations of Nixon's plumbers and the threat that loomed over Woodward and Bernstein during their investigation. Also commendable is Hal Holbrook, who plays Deep Throat, the FBI informer later revealed to be Mark Felt, who helped the reporters break the case. All the President's Men is the quintessential conspiracy epic, and one that proves that the most effective type of terror is the kind derived from real history. Number 2. Klute. Released in 1971, Klute stood out as one of the decade's first truly authentic thrillers. Centered around the eponymous PI John Klute, played by Donald Sutherland, as he investigates the disappearance of a wealthy businessman, an investigation that brings him into the path of sex worker Bree Daniels, Klute ticks all the boxes when it comes to suspenseful cinema. It has an eerie score and a bone-chilling atmosphere to match, compelling performances from its leads, and an anti-establishment undertone that set a precedent for other works in that genre. What the film does so effectively, however, is orchestrate its own kind of paranoia. You can't help but feel helpless in its creepiest moments. Number 1. The Conversation. The real tragedy of The Conversation isn't its ending, which is devastatingly effective, but the fact that it released the same year as The Godfather Part 2. 1974 was the year Francis Ford Coppola took the Academy by storm, and while The Conversation was well received, its blow-up style tale of a surveillance contractor uncovering a conspiracy stood no chance of matching the drama of the Corleone family. That isn't to say that Coppola's other 1974 classic wasn't well received either. It was. During awards season, The Conversation was nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Picture, and 5 BAFTAs too. While awards alone won't intimate the film's genius, it does go some way in illustrating just how magnificent Coppola's critique of the Watergate era truly was. Following the exploits of Harry Cole, Gene Hackman, an isolated surveillance expert with a shady past caught up in even shadier circumstances, The Conversation excels in driving home the terror of surveillance technology. Bugs, wiretaps, and more are all used to devastating effect, and in driving home the point that nowhere, not even your home, is safe, The Conversation is a tour de force in storytelling excellence. And that's our list. Know of any other conspiracy films that'll get people looking over their shoulders? Please contribute to our own surveillance network by letting us know in the comments below. As always, I've been Ewan, and I'll see you next time.